Chuck, it was your tweet that started this for me. You tweeted at Democrats about Latinos saying this: your woke white consultants aren't going to save us. My brother, you work for Bernie Sanders. You are well versed in the world of woke. So what are you talking about?
What I'm getting at is I've been doing campaigns for 31 years. I'm the senior most Latino operative in D.C., so I've seen a lot of mistakes over my lifetime, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't see them again. And as Democrats, a lot of times we're like, we'll just go in and we'll do a little Spanish TV at the end. We'll start late. Don't worry about those Latinos. They'll come home. Well, that's just not the case. I finished just writing a book called Tio Bernie that explains that if you'll invest in this community, if you will teach them and show them that they are a persuadable voter like you would do a white woman in the suburbs and spend the same amount of money courting the Latino vote, they will show up. And at the Democratic convention, we were complaining that there was no Latino representation. And then at the Republican convention, they were literally naturalizing citizens on the stage. Now, that don't mean you're going to get all of the vote, but just making those gestures that can skew off 1 point, 3 points, 4 points. And Donald Trump don't need to win all the Latino vote. He just needs to move 4 to 8% of that vote, and he's going to be reelected.
Christina, so let's go to Florida. It was after the last devastating hurricane in Puerto Rico when President Trump did so little to help Puerto Ricans, and many moved to the state of Florida. And over on shows like this, we said, this is really going to hurt him in Florida politically, but it's not. He is leading among Latino voters there. Why is that?
Steph, thank you for having me. Because his message to the Latino voters in Florida is targeted at South Florida, mostly at the Cuban American votes, at the Venezuelans, the Colombians, Nicaraguans, even Central Americans that fled during the war in their countries and are terrified of socialism. It's the S word that President Trump has been mentioning over and over again, saying that a Biden-Harris ticket would be a return of the radical left, exactly the same reason why they left their countries, and that seems to be working for them.
But why is it that anyone believes that message about Joe Biden, Saul? Joe Biden has been in office for decades, and there is nothing super progressive or socialist about him. Why are people suddenly buying into this idea that Joe Biden's a radical, especially Latinos, when President Trump has said and done so many anti-immigrant things?
Well, I think, first of all, obviously in the state of Florida, the population mix is a lot different than the rest of the country because of the immigrants that you just mentioned, or the source of where they came from. One of the important points that I think gets missed by everybody is that Latinos are very entrepreneurial. Probably 1 out of every 3 or 4 families owns a business. So they do care about regulation. They do care about taxes. They care about their source of income and those items and issues that appeal to them or are important to their family. So one quick point. If I'm Biden, and I'm not a political scientist like others are, but if I'm Biden as a marketer, I want to make sure that I'm talking to them as well as all the rest that are the traditional Democrat voting, Democrat-leaning kind of Latinos. So business matters, and talk business to those who, the 1/3 or 1/4, that might be leaning in the direction that most people don't think they will. So not homogeneity. It is about business, and talk business for the kinds of issues that are important to their income and source of income.
Okay, but Chuck, doesn't that fall directly into this stereotype that only Republicans are pro-business? You'll be hard-pressed to find a large number of Latino CEOs of Fortune 500 or publicly traded companies, yet we've lost almost 100,000 small businesses since the coronavirus pandemic hit.
I think you're exactly right, Stephanie. And those small business, guess what they do? They employ more Latinos. Let me break down the underperformance in some real Mexican redneck math here that my folks back home can understand. It's about investment. Pure and simple. Donald Trump is trying to put a bunch of investment into our vote because he wants to get 4 or 5 more percent. On our side of the aisle, on the Democratic side of the aisle, I have tracked $500 million going to super PACs that are focused on white voters, while in return, just $5 million have went to Latino super PAC focused on the same group of Latino voters. When you don't invest in a community, they will not show up. We proved that with Bernie Sanders, where we spent $15 million in just 5 states in the primary, and he overwhelmingly won. Democrats need to wake up, invest in our community if you want our votes.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.